the Reverend Maxine Schultz from Revealing Truth Church, and then if I could ask Jim Vos to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
So let's just take a moment with this full auditorium for a moment in silence. Just go within and feel the calmness and the serenity that we're bringing to this meeting. Knowing that there's one mind, and that mind is God's. That's the mind that we all use right now, that guides us through this meeting with its perfect action, perfect intuition, bringing us to discussion and allowing others to share, and knowing that everyone is using that one mind of God. We're grateful for that presence right here and right now, and we accept it as our own. And so it is. Amen.
If you would face the flag and place your hand over your heart and renew the pledge to the greatest country in the world.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As this is a newly formed planning commission, the first order of business will be the election of its chair, followed by the election of the vice chair. With that in mind, I would open nominations for the chair of the planning commission.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Jim Vos for chair.
Second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Mr. Vos, are you willing to accept that nomination?
Thank you, yes.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I will have those nominations closed. All in favor of Mr. Vos as the chairman for the Planning Commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Vos, you are the chair of the Planning Commission, and it is now your meeting to conduct.
And I make a motion that I nominate Dan Jacob for vice chair.
You may.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chairman Molly.
Yeah. If I understood you correctly, then Brian, you're going to acquiesce and just you don't want to carry on.
No, it is now your meeting.
All right. Thanks, Brian. So the next order of business is election of vice chair, and the floor is open for nominations. Mr. Molly.
I make a motion that I nominate Dan Jacob for vice chair.
I'd like to second that nomination.
All right. Any other nominations for vice chair? Mr. Jacob? Hearing no objections from Mr. Jacobs, then nominations are closed, and all those in favor of Dan Jacobs for vice chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations. All right. May we have a roll call of the newly seated planning commissioners?
Commissioners Randy Hall.
Here.
Cassandra Harvey.
Here.
Raj Molly.
Here.
Fabian Terciano.
Here.
Alex Wheeler.
Here.
Vice Chair Daniel Jacobs.
Here.
Dan Jacobs. Chairman Jim Vos.
Here.
James Vos, excuse me. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next order of business is a presentation. We have the distinct pleasure, Mr. Ludicky and I, to acknowledge our former planning commissioners who here this evening, and I don't believe Mr. Berkey is here. I don't see him. But Ms. Haycock and Ms. Smith are here, so if you'd join me at the podium, please. So we'll do it this way. These fine public servants have served your city for the last 2 years as members of our Planning Commission. And the third member, Larry Berkey, unfortunately couldn't be here this evening, and we'll be able to acknowledge his service at a future meeting, we hope. At any rate, it's my pleasure on behalf of the Mayor and City Council to acknowledge these fine ladies, Ms. Sandy Smith, who's been promoted to Criminal Justice Commission, and she's the vice chair of that commission, as she was here, and Dana Haycock, who is retiring from this commission. We appreciate your service and certainly thank you for everything that you've brought to this group, and it's been a pleasure working with you as friends and colleagues. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right,
Can I quickly just say?
You can say whatever you like.
It'll only take about 15 minutes, so no kidding. I just want to really thank my fellow planning commissioners. It's been such a pleasure to work with you, and you guys always made this job fun. Jim, you're a terrific chair. I'm glad to see that you're doing that again. And Dan, good luck in that chair. And also the planning staff. I mean, you are all so incredible, and I've learned so much, and I really do appreciate the time you put into training me and supporting me and spoiling me. So thanks so much, and best of luck to all the new commissioners.
And I certainly second that, all those comments. It's just been a wonderful 2 years and a fantastic experience. Thank you very much.
Public business from the floor. If an individual is unable to stay through the entire meeting due to extenuating circumstances, a total of 10 minutes is provided at this time, during which input may be given regarding agenda items. Individual speakers would be limited to 2 minutes each. Do we have any early speakers?
None have indicated so on their slips, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any person who would like to address the Planning Commission on any agendized item is requested to complete a speaker's card for the recording secretary and identifying the agenda item that you would like to discuss. Each person would be given an opportunity then to address the Commission at the time the agenda item is brought forward. Speaker's cards are available at the rear of the chambers as well as here at your right on the little table. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. The first item of business is our consent calendar. May I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve minutes from regular meeting of May 17, 2010.
Thank you. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The next item of business is Grace Lutheran Church. Our director will be excusing himself for this matter.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to state for the record, this is the church that I attend. However, I have not been involved in either the review or the formulation of the recommendations contained in the staff report.
Thank you. This item is a new public hearing, so without objection, the public hearing is now open. And And the matter before us is a one-year extension of the conditional use permit in 5 phases for this particular project. We have received a letter from Grace Lutheran Church acknowledging their full agreement to the conditions as presented in the staff report and the recommendation before us. Does anyone care to hear a staff report on this item? None? All right. Do we have speakers on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I see no speaker cards for this item.
Say again?
I see no speaker cards for this
There
item.
are no speaker cards on?
Correct, sir.
All right. Okay. So then, since there are no speakers on this item and we've received a staff, a concurrence from the applicant on the conditions, then it would be appropriate to close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion on this matter.
I recommend that we grant a one-year extension to June 15, 2011, based on the findings listed below and subject to the revised attached resolution number 0807.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Comment? Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. All right, thank you. Next item is a new public hearing on conditional use permit number 0817. However, the applicant has given us a letter requesting that the commission grant a 30-day continuance until July 19, 2001 at our next regular planning commission meeting. So,
I'd like to move that we grant a 30-day continuance to July 19, 2010 Planning Commission meeting.
Second that.
all right, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Before we vote on this matter, let me ask the director a question. Since the applicants requested a continuance and we have not opened a public hearing on this matter, would it be appropriate to open the hearing and consider testimony or what?
I would open the public hearing on the matter and then continue it over, because I believe if you don't open it, there's a question about whether it needs to be renoticed.
All right. Okay. So then may I ask the maker of the motion and the second to, if they would consider withdrawing their motion till we open the public hearing? All right. Thank you. You all right with that?
Second.
Okay. So let's open the public hearing then on conditional use permit number 0817, which is a request for alcohol beverage control type 20 off-sale beer and wine license for a new drugstore located on the southeast corner of 15th Street West and Avenue J in the city. So the public hearing is open without objection. Let's have a brief staff report on this then, please.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, as you've alluded to, we have received from the applicant a request for the continuation of this hearing until the next Planning Commission meeting in July. In their correspondence with us, they have indicated that they've requested the continuance in order to finalize some agreement points or issues between them and the potential tenant. We have no speakers cards that I've seen turned in for this item. I don't think there is anything from our standpoint that really demands that this hearing be conducted this evening. I think from staff standpoint, we would recommend that you follow the wishes of the applicant in this case.
Okay, thank you. So you have no speakers cards?
Not on this item, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So then, protocol then, we would close the public hearing and then continue, or leave the public hearing open and continue?
No, you would leave it open and merely continue it.
All right. Thank you. So the public hearing would remain open, and we'd consider a motion on the continuance then. Mr. Hall?
I'd like to grant a 30-day continuance to July 10, 2010 Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, then it's been moved and seconded to continue the matter for 30 days till July 19th. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. All right, next item is conditional use permit number 10-03, which is the application from TA High Desert LLC to construct a 20-megawatt solar photovoltaic electric generating facility in the rural residential zone. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. And I'm assuming we have speaker cards on this one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We have received a letter of concurrence from the applicant indicating they agreed all the conditions as proposed in the staff report. So shall we hear from the speakers, please? Or you want to give us a staff report?
I can give you a brief staff report if you would like.
All right, do that, please.
This particular request, as you indicated, is for a 20-megawatt solar photovoltaic electrical generating facility located on about 220 acres, roughly bounded by 100th Street West, 97th Street West, Avenue H, and Lancaster Boulevard. As you will recall, a number of months ago, you as the commission and then ultimately the city council approved a modification to the city's zoning ordinance which allows the placement of solar electrical generating facilities within the city's rural zone subject to a conditional use permit. This, however, is the first of those such requests that you have seen. We've indicated to you in the staff report that from our standpoint we feel this is a pretty low impact type of a project. Certainly visually it does not have anything near the visual effect of other alternative energy type generating facilities. If you compare it to like the e-solar plant or the typical wind turbine generation facilities, this one has very little visual effect. As we've indicated to you, the photovoltaic panels themselves are very thin. They are low profile. Depending on the tracking of the sun, a maximum height of 8 feet would be expected in terms of this facility. This location works well for them given its position adjacent to electrical transmission lines, which they intend to intertie to should the facility be built. They also have indicated to us that they do have an agreement with Southern California Edison for the supply of electricity. We've gone into some detail within the staff report on the environmental process that was followed for this project. We have indicated to you both there and in the initial study the types of studies that were conducted, and we have included for you proposed mitigation measures to address issues where those were identified. We believe that this is exactly the kind of project that the Planning Commission and City Council were looking to encourage by its change in the zoning code several months back. I would point out that this site several years ago was proposed for the construction of approximately 700 to 800 single-family dwelling units. Certainly in comparison to that proposed project, this has little, if any, impact on the typical kinds of things that you find with urban development. It does not create an impact on schools, traffic, water usage in comparison to more intense urban-style development. We have recommended to you approval of this, subject to the conditions contained in the staff report, and I know the applicant, as indicated to you, is in agreement with those proposals also.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the members before we hear testimony? No? All right. Does the applicant wish to present this evening? I'm assuming you filled out a card?
Yes, I did.
And you are, sir? Your name?
Jason Evans. Jason Evans.
Mr. Evans, welcome.
Yep. Good evening. I've been leading the permitting and community outreach effort for this photovoltaic project. You already heard quite a bit from Brian about the project, so I'll try to keep my remarks brief. Our company, Tuso Energy, is a venture-backed utility-scale solar developer. We're focused on photovoltaic projects. We're also committed to building projects with minimal impacts to the environment as well as minimal impacts to the community. I'd like to highlight some of the features of this particular project that demonstrate that commitment. The 200-acre site at West 100th Street and Avenue I is ideal for solar development. It is fallow agricultural land with non-native plant species, and it doesn't provide habitat to any protected animals. We have relatively few neighbors, and we have 2 on-site wells to meet the very limited water demands, as Brian was mentioning. We have also been proactive in our construction and development activities to avoid impacts to the community. Over the past few months, we have talked with a number of community groups in the area, including Antelope Acres, the Antelope Valley Conservancy, as well as going out to our immediate neighbors to solicit their feedback on the proposal and to then incorporate that feedback into our design. We'll have a fugitive dust control plan during construction, of course, but we also include desert-appropriate ground cover in order to make sure that we're not a source of ongoing dust pollution. Although there are no protected species that have been found on the site, we will be conducting pre-construction surveys to ensure that we won't have any biological impacts. As Brian mentioned, we have a very low visual footprint, we believe, but we have also incorporated a number of features to further soften the view of the plant. We will be surrounding the plant with a perimeter of trees, and we'll also include motion-activated downward shielded lighting to make sure that we're not a source of light pollution in that rural area. Finally, this plant will bring real benefits to the city of Lancaster. We will create jobs during construction as well as jobs to meet the ongoing demands for operation and maintenance. We'll take advantage of local services and support local businesses during construction. And we'll also give tours to the local elementary and middle schools once we have the project up and running in order to generate interest in our country's renewable resources. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the project, anything you would like me to address, and I do look forward to continuing to work with the city to make this project a success. Thank you.
Thank you, and just for the record, to be sure, you have seen the latest rendition of the conditions of approval that are before us this evening, and you agree to all of them without exception?
Yes, I just saw them this morning, actually, so yes.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other questions from anyone? All right, thank you. Do you have any speakers, please?
Yes, we have several listed as in favor and several listed as opposed, Mr. Chairman. Taking the in favor ones first, per our normal process, Dave Gomez.
Welcome, Mr. Gomez.
I'm with the National Electrical Contractors Association and IBW Local 11. I'm speaking in favor of this project. It'll bring local jobs, renewable. I think it's a good thing, and thank you. Just want to keep that in mind.
Thank you.
John Dewar.
Evening, sir, and welcome. Good evening.
Come here tonight I'm in favor of the this proposal. I believe it is nothing but a positive for the community and for Lancaster. I spent many years in the Los Angeles area. Remember, as a child, having a hard time breathing due to the smog and pollution that was created. This is green. It creates jobs, both ongoing and immediate. I see nothing but good and a feather in the cap of the council with this proposal being passed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Marshall Chance.
Mr. Chance, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Marshall Chance. I've lived here in Lancaster about 10 years now. I own a house not more than a mile away. I've been an electrician all my life. I'm also a state certified photovoltaic installer. I look forward to working on this project if it is passed, and I am in favor of it. Like Mr. Dewar said, nothing bad comes from going green. There's a lot of dirty energy going out. We see the effects of it daily. You know, my grandchildren live here in Lancaster, and I would never be afraid for them to play around a photovoltaic plant. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Another speaker.
Ralph Madison.
Mr. Madison.
How you doing? Excuse me for being late. I just made it in off the freeway from work.
Take your time. Happy to have you here.
Yeah, I came from Pico Rivera. It's a 2-hour ride. And the company here that's coming, I personally welcome them here. I've been waiting for about a year and a half. And for the last year, I do solar work. I'm a solar installer. I have to go down to Pico Rivera to get work for an agency. And I go down there to work. It's a 2-hour ride back and forth. Been to Temecula, Victorville, and San Dimas. And I've taken courses down in L.A. to prepare myself for when they arrive, and such them and other companies. And as the mayor said, he's trying to make this the solar capital of the United States. I welcome them because we have a lot of work in this. I'm not the only one that's been going to school and travel miles and miles, hours and hours to do this work. And we're prepared to work with them. And they speak of jobs. There's going to be a good number of jobs, and they're putting up PV. They don't take up water. Okay, it's a low impact, like they say. I've done a lot of research on it, and I welcome them here. And hopefully I can be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other speakers in favor?
I have no others listed in favor, Mr. Chairman.
All
I have
right.
several listed as opposed.
All right.
Dean Webb.
Was it Mr. Webb? Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Thank you. To the Lancaster City Planning Commission and the staff, thank you for giving us this time. First, let me say that I support solar and wind power, but on disturbed soils and especially photovoltaic technology, since it uses a lot less water. I feel that TA High Desert, though, should be good moves to working towards these, that they have made good moves working towards these goals. But I think that the EIR would help clarify the process by adding more details. First, EIR would give especially the community of Antelope Acres and West Side EV residents more time for comments. Additionally, a more thorough coverage of plant, wildlife, dust control, and other issues would be possible. If you don't require a EIR for this project, it will become harder to ask for one for other larger projects, for example, that require lots of water. The City Council was looking into the northeast section of Lancaster for solar facilities at one time. It is not clear to me that the city has a general plan. We could develop into a checkerboard mixing of residential and commercial projects. The developer spoke of bringing school children out on tours, which is a good objective. They mentioned having a 50-acre section of land which will be left as open space. Why not develop a desert restoration project, maybe in conjunction with the Antelope Valley Resource Conservation District nursery or some other groups as an educational tool? The environmental mitigation money paid by the developer to the city needs to be used for environmental improvements, not the city general fund. Should the facility be sold, the environmental regulations dealing with plants, animals, open space, et cetera, should also be stipulated in the new usage plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Do we have other speakers?
Yes. Pearl Ament. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, thank you. I would like to speak on the aesthetics value of the area. I've lived there going on 31 years now, and I feel that this project would change the character of the existing site. LA County Land Use Pattern Go LU1 requires that maintenance enhances the rural atmosphere of the unincorporated Antelope Valley, and there is nothing rural about a generating facility. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, you quoted Los Angeles County?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this is the city of Lancaster. Los Angeles County does not have jurisdiction. You understand that?
Oh, okay. It's LA County. That's what I got my information from anyway.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next speaker, please.
Ginger Stout.
Ms. Stout. Could you adjust the podium, please? Should be right up on top.
I hope so. No. Yeah. Do you remember?
There you go. Evening, Ms. Stout, and welcome.
Good evening. Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, Planning Commission. Oops. I represent the Antelope Acres Town Council and the people who live out in Antelope Acres. And, this is not considered by the people who live out there to be anything more than an electrical generating plant. And if you don't live next to one, you don't own land next to one, you don't really understand the impacts that it's going to have. And we feel that if you had done an EIR, you would have found out more about exactly what takes place on the land than if you just decided that everything was going to be fine, it's way out there, and it's not impacting anybody in Lancaster. So we request this because, number one, in the suit of the City of Antioch, an EIR was requested because, quote, mere conformity of a project to the general plan does not independently justify a finding of no significance. CEQA guidelines, section 15065 CC states an EIR must be prepared if a project would have effects that are individually limited but cumulatively considerable when viewed together with the effects of related projects. And as you know, there are thousands of acres already in the west side that are being projects that are being presented for solar projects out in that area. And it's just, the whole area is likely to become just one big solar generating plant. Okay, the president, Mr. Owen Hurd, admitted in a meeting with the town council members that if you live near there, anywhere near there, yes, that it would have a significant impact on the scenic vista, which is what people live out there for, to be able to see all the way to the mountains, to be able to see. That's what makes it rural. as opposed to blocking the view, which makes it more urban. We'd like to see that addressed in an EIR. It's really not a farm, a solar farm. It's more of an industrial generating facility. It's a business. Let's see how much time I have left here. Okay, it says, also at 90th and I, an EIR was required just down the road at 90th and an EIR for a project there, and according to that, it says that one of the things that's missing, was we read that EIR, what's missing from your impact statements is as though it's in a seismic shaking area. You said that it wouldn't hurt that, but according to the EIR at 90th and I, there is a potential for seismic subsidence, and that's not mentioned at all anywhere, and an EIR would present that. And again, just in summation, there's lots of other points we could bring up, but we'd like to ask you to do an EIR on that project. It would indicate in good faith that you care about the residents, that you care about the ecology, that when you really want to be green, you care about finding, out what's going on out there, the Antelope Valley Resource Conservation Nursery, the Swains and Hawk, and the others. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Stout. Appreciate your comments. And we'll ask staff to respond when the speakers are concluded. Thank you, Mr. Ludicky. Do you have further speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have one more. Judith Fuentes.
Ms. Fuentes, and welcome. Just take a moment so he can adjust the podium up. All right. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. And thank you to TA Energy for coming out to talk to us. Solar facility projects in Kern County are required to prepare an EIR. Currently, there are 12 requiring preparation. In the immediate LA Kern County west side area, taking up thousands of acres, there are about 9 similar projects proposed that would send power to the grid, not directly for use in Antelope Valley. I have references for that. But a list of similar projects in the area are Cormont Project, Sempra Project, Element Power's Tuso Project, Roseman Solar in Kern County, AV Solar Project, Willow Springs Solar, and Roseman Solar. These are all in Kern County. Cumulative impacts may be caused either by future phases of the project under consideration or by other closely related past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future projects. This is the CEQA Guidelines, Section 15.355, and we would request an environmental impact report on this project before you approve it. Thank you. I have some other correspondence here.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any additional speakers?
I have no other speakers, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then. So without objection, then the public hearing is closed, and we'll address our questions and comments to staff if we have any. Anyone? What I heard tonight, Mr. Ludicky, was that what I interpreted, I did not hear, but what I interpreted was the initial study was deficient, and that a mitigated negative deck that's before us for review and approval is deficient, and that an EIR is required and requested. No one said it was required, but that's what I interpreted folks to say, that the project does not conform to the general plan, that the impact to vistas or views, if you will, was not appropriately addressed, and that the cumulative impacts of cumulative environmental impacts relative to other similar projects in the area were not considered, as well as some subsidence issues. That I pretty well cover it?
That seems to cover the comments that they raised, Jess.
So would you care to address those comments, please?
Actually, I will ask Jocelyn Swain, who is the associate planner with the environmental side of the planning department, to respond to those questions.
All right, Ms. Swain, please.
Okay, the easy one first. 90th and I, the subsidence issue. It's way too loud. That EIR was done, I believe, in the early 90s, late 80s, before the subsidence map was updated. So the state seismic hazards map that we utilized to figure out where subsidence is was updated in 2005, and subsidence is not a concern out in that area at this time. With respect to the aesthetics, there was an aesthetics report conducted that is referenced in the initial study and is available for review at City Hall. And they looked at whether or not people driving on the public right-of-way or from their property would still be able to see what are considered the views of the valley. So the mountains to the south, the north, the west, and whether or not the construction of this project would block the available views that are open to the general public. And because the site, the panels are only going to be about 8 feet tall, you're still going to be able to see the views of the valley and the mountains surrounding it. Granted, yes, when you drive past it, it won't be open farmland, it won't be open desert, there will be something on it, but it will be fenced. It is going to have trees surrounding the property to block the views of just flat solar panels. So, as those mature and fill out, you won't be looking at flat photovoltaic panels. With respect to cumulative impacts, most cumulative impacts, to have a significant cumulative impact, you have to have it's a cumulatively considerable contribution from your project to the overall impact of the resource area. Quite a few areas where you might think you would have cumulative impacts are site-specific. So if I build on a project here and AV Solar builds to the northwest, there's no geological cumulative impact because the grading on one site really doesn't affect the grading on another site. Areas where you would have a cumulative impact potentially would be issues like traffic, air quality, biological resources, potentially cultural resources. And when we looked at those, this project doesn't have a significant impact in any of those resource areas, so it doesn't cumulatively contribute to any significant cumulative impact. So traffic, there's very little traffic generated by this project. So when you add the small amount of traffic from the construction or operation of this project to traffic in the general area, you're not going to notice a cumulative impact as you would with, say, a commercial development. So if you add traffic from a commercial development to something, it's much more noticeable. There are air quality impacts. Those air quality impacts are less than significant with the standard conditions. So, dust control plan, they have to follow all of the Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District rules and regulations. So it doesn't generate emissions that would cumulatively contribute to a significant impact. With respect to biological resources, we did a preliminary biological resources survey. They went back out a second time to conduct burrowing owl surveys. They've done focused special plant surveys, and there was nothing on the site. Now, when they go to do construction, they will be doing another round of surveys to make sure that they're not impacting or anything else hasn't moved into the area. So there's no impacts on our site that because of other solar projects in the area would contribute to an overall loss of habitat to additional species. If you have specific questions, I can answer those also.
How about a for instance?
Okay.
For instance, according to the mitigation monitoring plan, 30 days prior to the construction ground disturbance activity, a burrowing owl survey would need to be conducted, and a burrowing owl or owls were identified on the site or near the site.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, what happens then?
They would have to contact Fish and Game, and Fish and Game would tell them how they wish to proceed with it. What typically happens if it's breeding season and they find burrowing owls is that all work stops. You don't move forward, and you have to wait until the baby owls have fledged and moved away from the nest. If it's wintering season, so if it's not active breeding season, and you were to find an owl on the site, you are required to passively relocate them, and it basically means putting a trap door on their nest, so when they go out to forage, they can't get back in. If they find active breeding pairs on the site, that's typically required to be mitigated with the purchase of 6.5 acres for every breeding pair or single adult found. But Fish and Game is the one who identifies what those conditions would be at the time they're identified.
Noticed you made comment about fugitive dust. However, your initial study identifies it as less than significant, and there is no mitigation measures proposed.
Correct, because they are required by law, therefore it's not a mitigation measure, to comply with Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District Rule 403, which is a fugitive dust rule, and it lays out specifically what they are required to do.
I think I recall in previous potential fugitive dust developments, the commission has condition projects that to the effect that anyone impacted by the potential of fugitive dust would have an opportunity to contact the developer directly to deal with those issues, that there was a 24-hour phone number available and that type of thing.
Right, and I do actually think that's part of the rule, and it is in our standard conditions that they have to comply with that rule. They have to have a dust control plan. That everybody doesn't have a choice. They all have to follow that.
Just making sure. All right, very good. Anyone else have any questions of staff or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. Mr. Webb, I believe, raised the question of how biological mitigation fees are used within the city. Any of those fees that are collected are kept in a separate account. The only body that's authorized to allow expenditure of those is the City Council, and they have to take a formal vote on how those were to be used. So those do not go into the city's general fund. They specifically go into an account that's held separately. Also, just by way of reference, I don't know if we gave the applicant a chance for rebuttal, but they normally do get that opportunity.
Not yet. Mr. Hall, you had a question?
Yes, one of the speakers brought up about the power wouldn't stay in Antelope Valley. How would we address that? I mean, the power flows into the grid, isn't it? Something we tap off of? Or?
Yes, I don't think that we as a city really have any authority over that. They have an agreement or are in the process of completing an agreement with Southern California Edison. Any power they generate would go into the grid system purchased essentially by Southern California Edison, but where that power goes to is really at the discretion of that power distributor, not so much us being able to say that power generated has to go here or there.
All right.
I actually had a question for Ms. Swain. You mentioned that for the biological there were 2 visits. The first question, why 2 visits and the time frame between the 2?
When you submit an application with the city, you're required to submit a biological resources survey. So they submitted one. That one was done in January. When you get through the biological report, it actually had recommendations, and Fish and Game had also seen that report, and they had requested follow-on surveys. So surveys were done in April for burrowing owls, nesting birds, and the endangered plant species, special plant species, at the request of Fish and Game.
The beginning of the breeding season.
Breeding season typically goes from March through the end of August or beginning of September, depending on the bird species.
All right, anyone else have any questions or comments? So then, since I closed the public hearing, we have to reopen the public hearing and allow the applicant to rebut if they care to. If the, Mr. Evans, is it?
We would like to.
Pardon?
We would like to have an opportunity to speak.
If you'd like to rebut, you're welcome to, and the public hearing is reopened for that purpose.
Thank you. I think Jocelyn addressed a lot of the concerns. I just wanted to add a little bit more color. I do think we conducted a large number of studies to support this mitigated negative declaration, including visual studies, cultural studies, air quality studies, biology studies, traffic studies, noise studies. We submitted those to the city, and all of those supported the finding of the mitigated negative declaration that there is no significant impact. In terms of the biology, I also want to just add something to that. We had biologists come out to the site in December, March, April, and actually they just finished up their last round of studies last week. So they've been there December, March, April, and June. They'll also come back to the site in around October, 30 days before groundbreaking. So biologists have been walking the site, looking for burrows, looking for Swainson's hawk, looking for the alkali Mariposa lily, and they haven't found them. In general, I think that the other projects that Judy referred to, she referred to 9 projects in the vicinity of our project, and I believe that's including projects that are in a very preliminary development stage, such that these are not projects that are definitely going to be realized. The only projects we've identified that are actually projects that are definitely going to be constructed there are 2 of them. One of them is about 7 miles away, and the other is about 14 miles away. These are projects that, as Jocelyn was indicating, combined with our projects, these projects don't cumulatively contribute to any of the impacts that our project would have, and our project does not cumulatively contribute to any of the impacts that those projects would have due to the geographic separation, as well as the fact that our project does not have any of those significant impacts. I also just want to address one issue that came up where Judy, I believe it was, or it might have been Ginger, indicated that Owen Hurd had said that we'll definitely have significant impacts on our neighbors. I think I don't want to get into a he said, she said scenario, but I do believe that's misconstruing his statement. He said that there may be impacts on our neighbors, but he didn't characterize those as significant. Just in closing, I do want to mention that this project is, as Brian mentioned, fully consistent with the type of land use that the rural residential zoning amendment was intended to encourage. I do think this conditional use permit should be granted. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the applicant? No? All right. So we'll close the public hearing again. The only question I had, Mr. Ludicky, was a comment regarding the general plan of land use. And in your opening statement, you indicated that in previous action of this commission and the city council, we've modified the general plan to include rural residential for this specific type of use.
Yeah, actually the modification was to the zoning code, but there are certainly policies and specific actions in the general plan that called for increasing the availability of alternative energy, including solar. And certainly that was consistent with that approach.
All right. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the members? Have anything further, Mr. Ludick?
I have no other comments, Mr. Chair.
All right. Okay, the matters before us, what's your pleasure?
I move that we adopt resolution number 1027, approving the conditional use permit number 1003.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further questions, comments, remarks? Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. All right, next item is item number 5, conditional use permit 10-10. It is a conditional use permit for on-sale sale and consumption of alcohol, type 41 sale of beer and wine for a proposed restaurant in an existing building. This is a public hearing, and the public hearing is open on this matter. I do not find a letter of concurrence on this one, however. Maybe I'm missing it.
We didn't receive any.
We did not?
No.
All right. Okay. So then we'll hear a brief staff. We have speakers on this?
No speakers on this item, Mr. Chairman.
None? If someone wishes to speak, please turn in your cards. So we'll hear a brief staff report, and then we'll hear from the speaker.
Chairman Vos and Commissioners, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for the on-site sale and consumption of alcohol in an existing vacant
We'll call
restaurant.
on you when she's finished.
Which would be Magoo's Pizza Parlor. The municipal code requires a conditional use permit for on-site sale of beer and wine. The pizza parlor is considered a bona fide restaurant and is exempt from the distance requirements. As I was looking at the site, however, I noticed that there is no trash enclosure, and even though we don't have it as a condition, I'd like to ask the applicant to provide a trash enclosure on the site, the rear of the building. With that, the project meets all the requirements of the zone, will not adversely affect the nearby residents of the business. The conditions of approval ensure the safety and general welfare of the surrounding area would be maintained and operated, and staff is recommending approval of the request for alcohol at the proposed Magoo's restaurant with the added condition to add a trash enclosure. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions of staff from anyone? All right. Is the applicant present? And wish to speak? You may if you wish. You don't have to. All right? Okay. I do have a question of the applicant, so if you could come to the podium, sir, and are you Mr. Gill? Yes, sir. Good evening, sir, and welcome. Good evening. And the reason I've asked you to come before us so we can put you on the spot. Okay. You've heard the staff presentation and the conditions of approval that have been shared with you, and the additional condition of installing a trash enclosure on the site in conformance with the city ordinance.
Yeah, we can provide the trash can.
You have no objection to that?
No.
And you agree to conform to all the conditions of
Yes, sir.
approval? Terrific. Okay. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. All right. Now we have a speaker in favor.
Francis Lane.
Ms. Lane.
Good evening.
Good
I'd
evening,
just like
Ms.
to say I have property in the area, and I look forward to having a
a viable business instead of an empty building in the neighborhood that's been there for many years. So I think everybody was familiar with the Shakey's Pizza that was there formerly, and we'd much rather have a business than an empty building. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Any other speakers?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So then, without objection, the public hearing is closed, and we'll consider a motion on this matter.
I'll move that we adopt resolution number 10-28, approving conditional use permit number 10-10.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Molly. All right. Any further questions or comments? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next item is item number 6, which is conditional use permit 10-11, Superior Groceries. The addition of an incidental off-sale of alcohol beverages at a proposed Superior Grocery Store, Type 21, in a CPD zone. Public hearing on this matter is open. And for the record, we have received a letter communication from Edward Whalen, Superior Groceries, indicating that they do not contest any of the conditions and they accept them all. All right. Do we have an applicant who wishes to address us tonight?
I have no speaker's card on it, Mr. Chairman. You can poll the audience.
The applicant present and wish to address the commission?
We're present, but we were told that if it was uncontested, there would be no need to speak. Available should you have any questions.
If you'd like to speak to us, please come to the podium so we can get you on the record, because I didn't hear what you said. You are, ma'am?
Valerie Sachs, liquor license specialist on behalf of the applicant. We were told by the planner that since we submitted a non-contested letter and if no one else had any comments that we didn't need to speak. However, I'm here and somebody from Superior Grocers is here in the event that you have any questions.
All right. Very good. Thank you, ma'am. All right. So do we have any speakers' cards on this one? We have none. All right. Anyone care to hear a staff report on this? No? All right. It's appropriate then to close the public hearing. Consider a motion on this matter.
I move that we adopt resolution number 10-29, approving conditional use permit number 10-11.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Been moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right. Next item is item number 7. It is a public hearing regarding conditional use permit 10-12, CEC Entertainment, Inc., which is Chuck E. Cheese, actually. A conditional use permit to allow family entertainment with an arcade and on-site consumption of alcohol, Type 41 sale of beer and wine for a bona fide restaurant for Chuck E. Cheese in a CPD zone. So the public hearing on this matter is open. Do we have an applicant on this?
I have a speaker's card from an applicant, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Shall we hear from the applicant then? We did receive, for the record, a letter of concurrence to all the conditions, I believe. We did.
Good evening.
Good evening. And your name, ma'am?
My name is Alice Winters. I'm from the corporate office of CEC Entertainment.
Welcome, Ms. Winters.
My address is 4441 West Airport Freeway, Irving, Texas. Chuck E. Cheese has been in Lancaster since 1993, so we have a long history, and I hope that is being a good corporate neighbor. Haven't had any complaints, so I'm assuming we have been. We always mean to be in every community we are in. In this particular case, the ownership made us aware of a space just on the other end of the strip center where we currently are that's over twice as big. This restaurant is one of the very smallest, if not the smallest in the entire system, and does very well. So when this opportunity came available, our real estate people started looking at it, and so that's all we're doing. The concept doesn't change. Nothing changes. It's just going to be a lot more open. You're not going to be very crowded. You're going to have room to walk around all the games. There will be a lot more games. There will be more seats, of course, because it's going to be over twice as big. But everything else stays the same. The ownership, the concept, the hours, the service. It's just merely a relocation. Mm-hmm.
Any questions from the applicant from anyone? None. All right. Thank you, Ms. Winters. Appreciate your comments. Came a long way to see us tonight. Thanks for coming. All right. Any other speakers on this?
No other speakers, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
then it's appropriate to close the public hearing without objection. And I do have one comment, picayune comment, actually. In the staff report on page 2 that we promoted State Route 14 to an interstate. That would be nice, but it's not. Interstate 14 is down in Mississippi and places like that, so, as I recall anyway. So, shall we consider a motion on this matter, please?
Yes, I recommend that we adopt resolution number 10-30, approving conditional use permit number 10-12.
Thank you. Second, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion from anyone? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is director's announcements. Mr. Ludicky?
No specific announcements this evening, Mr. Chairman.
You what?
No specific announcements
Really?
this evening. No. Oh, well, I think you are all already aware of this. However, the citywide rezoning, which the Commission took up in April, I believe, for recommendation, is being heard by the Council tomorrow evening.
Right. There's also an appeal of a decision that the Commission made a couple of months ago regarding alcohol beverage sales at a mini mart at H and 10th Street East that we voted unanimously to oppose, I believe.
Yes.
For the members present. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow night at the City Council meeting, Mr. Ludicky.
Yes, you will, and I'll see you.
All right. Anything from the Commission they wish to bring up? Any members have anything they'd like to say? I would like to say welcome, which I failed to do at the beginning of the meeting, and I apologize. Welcome to our new members, our 3 new members, and appreciate you all agreeing to serve our community. And thank you for the members who are retained to continue to serve our community. This is our previous commission was an excellent group, and I expect this commission to be just as professional and attentive to detail as we were previously. Would also like to point out an issue that I had raised some time ago regarding the proliferation of bootleg signs and what I consider junk signs that some may call political advertisement that tend to proliferate our community, particularly during prior to and and long after elections. The primary election has been over for some weeks now, and there continues to be signs scattered all over our town that have not been removed. And so I don't know if we need an official complaint to code enforcement to get somebody out there to pick them up and charge the folks that have failed to clean up their political signs or something, but they're a mess. And I would encourage the folks around here that have them up that maybe they could be respectful of our community and remove them forthwith. All right? That's my only comment. Public business from the floor, non-agendized item. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the commission regarding city business. Under state legislation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing the commission regarding items not specifically referenced on the agenda. Please complete a speaker's card for the recording secretary. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Do we have individual speakers on non-agendized items? Anyone?
I have no cards, but...
Going once, twice? All right, then. We stand adjourned until Monday, July 12th at 2010 at 5:30 p.m. here at City Hall in the large conference room. Thank you.
Yes, there's funding attached to Weed and Seed, but primarily it's a strategy to bring the community together and with the guidance of the committees to make the city, crime-free, we hope. We really hope that we can just all look and say we live in the safest community in the whole United States. That's the goal. So, and Janie, I'm gonna stop talking and let you talk now.
Okay,
but,
we are partners in crime.
Yes, we are.
He's the weed and I'm the seed. His job is to go in and change the environment from a negative environment, and our job is to go in and bring positive resources into the community. Our job is to empower you as the residents of that community, to show you how to develop committees, to show you how to have a voice in the council, to show you how to walk the walk that makes a positive impact in your communities. We're not here to take the lead. We're here to empower you to take the lead, to take over your community, to help embrace positiveness in a community, bring safeness, bring healthy environments, bring